Acting President, I move that this House acknowledges that the Cook Government's delivery of a strong and focused 2025-2026 state budget and its commitment to building Western Australia, in particular, 1, the responsible, effective and strategic management of our state's finances, 2, the strategic planning for Western Australia's future through a focus on jobs and economic diversification, and 3, strong and targeted regional spending, including continued investment through royalties for regions. Acting President, I'd like to begin just by contemplating, I guess, the overall vision that comes with this particular state budget and indeed the Cook Government more broadly, because it was noted in some of the earlier budget speeches. It's a bit like squidgy, only it means squeegee. Some of the earlier budget speeches that the only criticism that I could hear consistently levelled was that it lacked discipline and had no specific focus, which I found profoundly ironic, because the focus of the budget has been consistent and delivered in a highly disciplined way by a highly disciplined team across this side of the room. That is, the focus is on economic output, job creation, diversifying our economy and building more things here in Western Australia while delivering on health and housing for the community. I also noted some attempts to separate money from the management of the budget and the attempt to call the healthy finances that we have presented the good people of Western Australia with luck. However, it's impossible to separate management of from the money, and I'll demonstrate that by taking us a little bit further back in history, not quite as far as the Honourable Steve Martin tried to travel back in time, but I'm going to take us back to 2016 and an article written in the Financial Review. And it said, WA posts worst economic results in 27 years. Now, for those who have not taken the self-protective step of erasing that awful time in Western Australia's history from their minds, allow me to remind you, I'll read from this article. Western Australia's economy has suffered its second largest contraction on record. This was under the Liberal leadership of Premier Colin Barnett at the time. Western Australia's state final demand had plunged 3.8% in the September quarter, and that was a fall far larger than in any other state or territory, and came after the economy had already shrunk 2.7% in the June quarter. It was the worst result since 1989, a record that the Liberal National Government continues to hold. But it was noted by economists that the results were a sense of the pulse of the domestic economy at the time and the household perspective and the measures that were directly related to the labour market. So basically, it was argued by Barnett at the time that we weren't measuring the economy in the right way, which is something that we seem to be an argument that we constantly get from the other side of the room, from the opposition, is that they want to try and create interesting smoke and mirrors around the data that's in front of them, while the rest of the world is saying 1 + 1 = 2. They want to argue that it equals -3. What we did see under the Liberal National Government at the time, that article that I referred to is written, is Western Australia had the highest unemployment rate in the country at 6.5%. On the year-on-year decline at 9.6%, it was the biggest on record, a record they continue to hold today. At the same time, Premier Barnett was wanting to sell off a majority stake in the state's electricity poles and wires to help reduce that debt, claiming that it would give us $3 billion. Obviously, that's something that Labor didn't support, won't support, but I shudder to think the position we'd be in now if that were to happen. And I'll hearken us back to the sale of our freight network and the sale of freight network to ARC Infrastructure and the impact that has had if we only need a reference point to consider what could have been. Thank goodness the voters chose an alternative route in the Labor government. But while I'm at it, let's not also forget, just to reference the Honourable Steve Martin's comments about railcar construction, that it was the Court Liberal government that closed the Midland Rail workshops, and thousands of workers lost their jobs. They lost that industry for us forever, a shameful part of our history. And it was the Honourable Ben Wyatt back at that time who was warning the Liberal National Government that their lack of effort in diversifying WA's economy was going to cost us. It was going to cost us, and indeed it did. And what you're seeing from us in past budgets and this budget is recognising that we need to make conservative estimates about when we're a state that is heavily producing our natural resources. But we know that if we want to avoid a constant cycle of boom or bust, a cycle that the Liberals seem to be content to ride and have everyone ride with them and feel those extreme pits and falls when it does bust, that you need to have a diversified economy, and that's something that we are heavily invested in. It's something that this budget delivers particularly well, and we have been doing very well. And yet all we hear from the other side of the room is constant criticism. Meanwhile, by 2023 we'd finally clawed our AAA rating back. Thanks to the Cook government's disciplined, effective and strategic management, we have a AAA rating again. We have a AAA rating from both international credit rating services, S&P Global and Moody's Investor Service. And this makes WA, and this is no small feat, this makes WA the only Australian state or territory, and in fact one of the few jurisdictions globally to have a AAA rating from both agencies. Luck indeed. Surely it is a very difficult argument to prosecute, or to attempt to prosecute and maintain any kind of credibility, that it is sheer luck and not good strategic and effective financial management that has got us to where we are today, and that has earned us the confidence of the WA voters in re-electing the Cook government, and we intend to continue with that performance and diversification of our economy. But not only that, ComSec State of States has placed WA at the top of the states for the third consecutive time, consistent performance being recognised by key agencies. They've also noticed our strong economic output, our job creation, our diversification of the economy, and the fact that we're working to build more things in WA. It gives us a high rating in terms of the 5 of the 8 economic metrics, including things like labour markets, retail and housing indicators. It also ranks us first on 5 things such as retail spending, 11.5% higher in the December quarter. Trend unemployment rates, the lowest of all states at just 3.5%. And I noticed that members across the floor wanted to attempt to criticise our job figures and our employment rate. It becomes a ludicrous argument to prosecute, and definitely a nonsensical one, and it shows a party desperately clutching at straws for opportunities to criticise where there is no criticism to be levelled. We also have a fairly significant population growth, which means that we've got some sustained growth in business as well, and we're doing some great work in terms of supporting business. A lot of our work now has been placed into ensuring that the housing market can now be revived, and there's a lot more construction able to take place, but also that we've got the trades and the skills to deliver that construction. And we can see evidence of that work, of the success of that work, in that housing completions rose 18% in 2024, and that's the highest rate in 7 years. It's effective strategic planning and management to achieve the outcomes that the state wants us to achieve. We also see a vote of people voting with their feet in terms of we've got the strongest, we've got strong population growth, and the ABS noted last week that our population hit 3 million, which shows us that there's great confidence in the state. There's people seeing opportunity here. They can see that we're managed well, and that people want to be here and be a part of the prosperity and the job opportunities that is Western Australia. I'm running out of time. This has all gone much quicker than I. So I'm going to skip to the second point, and that is in terms of our planning and our focus through jobs and training, because I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the investment, in particular the 21.9 million to make additional building and construction courses free in 2026, to ensure that we have the skills and people trained, not just young people, but people who want to transition into new training areas, to be able to undertake that work. And I did mention in one of my previous speeches that some of the prohibitive nature of some of the high costs that the previous Liberal government decided to place on those courses for TAFE students, making it impossible for some young people to do those courses, or people who are from low socioeconomic backgrounds. Education and opportunities have to be for everyone. But the courses include things like certificate in plumbing, wall and ceiling lining, bricklaying, block laying, solid plastering, civil construction, construction and construction pathways. They're all on the fee-free list at the start of 2026, so great opportunities for young people who will be finishing school towards the end of the year and looking towards what their future brings. But they can look towards it with feel a sense of optimism and a sense of it being achievable or doable for them. And this is all part of our Made in WA plan, making sure that we've got the skills to undertake those jobs and make sure that we've got people that can fill those jobs as we develop and diversify our economy. Diversifying our economy through things like 83 million to produce electric buses and ferries in WA, 50 million for a housing innovation fund, 50 million to establish Perth Biomedical Precinct, 50 million for local battery manufacturing programs, 40 million for new industries and innovation fund. And more money for new energies, of course, which is our transition to renewables and carbon capture and storage projects, 25 million towards manufacture and transmission of towers and components in terms of that transition as well, and 8.9 million for exploration incentive schemes. There's some really exciting work and skills coming into the state as well, particularly in terms of STEM type skills. So I've met a lot of people recently who are working in that field, and it's really exciting to see that attraction as we put that investment in and work on diversifying our economy. I'm going to skip to point 3 because I'm out of time. There's just far too much to cover in all of this. But I talked about our regional investment and our investment for royalties for regions. $4 billion for royalties for regions in this budget, and plus a $10.3 billion pipeline for regional infrastructure works. Some really great investment in our regions and incredibly significant spending. So $121 million for additional regional health and mental health investment. There's a lot in here, and I was going to talk about things like the 40 cents per kilometre for PATs and that sort of thing, but I also wanted to mention investments in my own home patch, like $1 million for the renal services, $1 million for radiation oncology, $1 million for the Kalbarri Health Service, $12.2 million for virtual infant, child and adolescent mental health service hub, and plus we've still got the $19 million that's going into the Geraldton Health Campus redevelopment and $19.6 for the development of the Mullowa Hospital. So there's some really great investment in terms of health across the whole state, but that's some that is happening in particular in my patch. But there's also some great work in terms of regional services more broadly, $30 million for School of Isolated and Distance Education. I wrote down a figure that we're spending on regional bus services. I might have put it further down. We've got $5 million for PCYC early intervention and diversionary programs, and those are particularly important in terms of stopping harms for young people in their lives and the opportunities for them before they start. So it's really great investment there. $104 million for GROW, to double the GROW housing construction program, so we're getting more housing and shifting some of those people out of some of the other housing in the region to ensure that there's more housing around for everyone, but making sure that people who are coming to the region to fill the jobs that we need have housing and they have somewhere to move into straight away. I wanted to talk about the some of the investment in schools. So there's a great investment as part of our regional investment, $789.6 million for a schools infrastructure program, and that will deliver some great results right across the state. But in my home patch, that's money for Geraldton Senior High School, but also $23.5 million for a new gym at Champion Bay. And while we were there announcing that, we also spoke to a group of kids that were the beneficiaries of our Country Week fund that was helping kids go to Country Week. And one of the things we were hearing is that this is the first time some of those kids have been able to go to Country Week, so they are super excited. And for other families, it meant that more than one person in their family could actually go to Country Week. So it's really unlocking opportunities for regional kids, opportunities to grow, travel and experience the full range of opportunities that we offer in this state. But this is a budget that is strategic, well planned, well managed. It's a disciplined government. And additionally, I would say that it is very little to do with luck and a lot to do with outstanding fiscal management.
Members, before I give the call